Today, we are diving into a truly epic journey. It's one that started out as a quest for glory, but ended up as one of the most incredible survival stories ever told. It's a question we don't really think about much. We love to celebrate success. But what happens when a huge, world-changing ambition just completely falls apart in the middle of nowhere?
Well, the answer is you fight. You find a way. You endure. For Sir Ernest Shackleton and his crew of 27 men, failure wasn't the end of the story. No, it was just the beginning of a 497-day ordeal on the ice at the very bottom of the world.
Okay, let's get into it. To really understand how they survived, you first have to understand just how insanely ambitious their original goal was. This was Shackleton's mission. Picture it. It's 1914. There's no GPS, no Gore-Tex, no modern tech, and he plans to lead the first ever land crossing of Antarctica. We're talking about a 2,900-kilometer journey that he figured would take about 120 days. Just wild. And this really shows you the scale of the thing. The plan was to sail into the Weddell Sea, land right there at Weddell Bay, and then trek all the way across the continent, right over the South Pole to the Ross Sea on the other side. A truly monumental undertaking. But of course, Antarctica had other plans. This is the part of the story where that incredible dream smashes headfirst into a frozen, brutal reality. As they pushed into the Weddell Sea, the conditions were just awful. Temperatures plummeted to -50 Celsius. The local whalers there actually warned them, saying it was a really bad year for ice and that they should wait. But Shackleton, he was determined and pushed on. And that was the decision that changed everything. By January 1915, their ship, the Endurance, was completely stuck, frozen solid in the pack ice. For 9 long, agonizing months, they were just prisoners, drifting wherever the ice took them. The pressure from the ice just grew and grew until it started to crack the ship's hull like a nut. And finally, in November, she was gone, swallowed by the ice. And what's so powerful here is the human side of it. As they were forced to abandon ship, one of the crew, Tom McLeod, said what everyone else was thinking. The mission was over. Now, it was just about staying alive. With the ship gone, their entire world just shrank to this fragile, drifting piece of ice. They had no radio, no way to call for help. Nobody in the world even knew if they were still alive. So you have to wonder, how do you even begin to survive something like that? Let's take a look at what life became for these men, just marooned in the most hostile place on Earth. I mean, just let this number sink in. 497 days. From the day their ship got stuck until the day they finally touched solid land again. That's almost a year and a half, just living on a sheet of shifting ice. Survival meant brutal, brutal discipline. Rations were cut to almost nothing. Shackleton ordered that each man could only keep 2 pounds of personal items. He even left his own gold coins behind to set an example. They started hunting seals and penguins to eat, and eventually, they had to make the heart-wrenching choice to kill and eat their sled dogs. And through all this, Shackleton kept morale up, assigning tasks every day just to keep his men's minds busy and keep despair away. And if things weren't bad enough, their little ice raft was drifting north, straight towards the Drake Passage. This is literally the deadliest stretch of ocean on the entire planet, famous for its monstrous waves. If their ice floe hit these open waters, it would be torn to shreds, and that would be the end. So after 497 days adrift, their ice floe finally broke apart, and they managed to reach the desolate shores of a place called Elephant Island. But they were still completely stranded. Shackleton knew no one was coming for them. He had to go get help. And what he decided to do next was one of the biggest gambles in history. He decided he would take 5 of his men and try to sail 1,300 kilometers to a whaling station on the island of South Georgia. A journey that would take them right across the edge of that same ferocious Drake Passage. And they would do it in this, a tiny 22-foot open lifeboat. It was basically a suicide mission. For 17 straight days, they battled hurricane-force winds and these giant waves, constantly soaked, freezing, and barely getting any sleep. Against all odds, they made it, but their ordeal still wasn't over. They had landed on the uninhabited side of South Georgia. The whaling station they were aiming for was on the other side of the island, across a treacherous, unmapped, and never-before-crossed mountain range of ice and glaciers. So, with no real climbing gear, Shackleton and 2 others started to cross it. They trekked nonstop for 36 hours, climbing these frozen peaks, and at one point when they hit a sheer cliff, they had to literally carve steps into the ice with a small axe to get down. This was considered so impossible that nobody successfully did it again until 1955, and that was with a team of expert mountaineers using modern equipment. Unbelievably, they stumbled into the whaling station. The whalers there didn't even recognize them as human at first. But help was finally here. Now the race was on to go back and rescue the 22 men they'd left behind. Back on Elephant Island, Shackleton's second-in-command, a man named Frank Wild, was just a rock. Every single morning, without fail, he'd tell the men to pack up their gear, saying, "The boss is coming today." And for 128 days, that's 4 long months, the men waited. They were living under 2 overturned lifeboats, fighting off frostbite, starvation, and despair, just holding on to that tiny sliver of hope that Wild gave them every morning. After 3 failed rescue attempts that were blocked by ice, Shackleton finally, on his 4th try, broke through. As his ship got closer, he could see them, all of his men, alive. And this is the final mind-blowing result of the whole thing. Not a single man was lost. So when you think about it, by every normal measure, Shackleton's mission was a total failure. He never even stepped foot on the continent he set out to cross. But by saving every single one of his men from a situation that was completely hopeless, through sheer force of will and incredible leadership, didn't he actually achieve something far more legendary?